A nice tabletop or countertop, I think, can really make or break a project. It's just such a nice addition. But there are various ways to make a counter, right? So which method is the right choice for you? Well, it may depend on what kind of wood you have access to, how much wood you have access to, and what kind of tools you have. So we're just working on this kitchen island project, and it has a beautiful cherry counter. Now, originally, I was set on making a Butcherblock counter because the Butcherblock counters are just gorgeous, and I've never made one for like a large-scale project. So I figured, you know, we have a decent amount of rough stone cherry, maybe we can make a Butcherblock counter. Well, take a look at this. It's not a Butcherblock counter. Why? Because Butcherblock counter uses a lot more wood. How much more wood does it actually use? I'm kind of curious. So, this finished board here is 2 by 4 foot in size. It is 2.25 inches thick. So, decent size, a counter, right? Looks pretty nice. So, like, what is that in volume? So, 24 by 48 by 2.25 divided by 144, that is like 18 board feet. That's the final dimension of the project. Okay, but we need more, you know, initially working with rough stone lumber, let's add 30% more. That is like 25 board feet to start out with. This is to create a side grain board. Now, if we wanted to make a Butcherblock counter, we would go through the same step. We would do this first, and then we would chop it up into pieces and do a secondary glue up, right? So for simplicity's sake, let's make the Butcherblock the same thickness as this current one, 2.25 inches. So we're gonna cut this board up in lots of little sections that are each 2.25 inches wide. And then we're gonna, you know, turn them around. So let's do 48 divided by 2.25. 21. However, we're not gonna get that, right? Because we need to take kerf into account. On the table saw blade is like 1/8 of an inch. So 21 pieces times 0.125 equals 2.6 inches that we're losing, which means we're not actually going to get 21 pieces, right? We have to remove the round up here. So we will actually get 19 pieces. So 19 times 2.25 inches deep means that we're now gonna have a 42.75 inch counter. We need 48 inches, right? So we have about 89% of our counter. In other words, we need 11% more wood of the final milled up wood in order to turn this into a Butcherblock. Although, to be fair, when I first was thinking about this idea of a Butcherblock, I was picturing something thicker, because if you're going to go through the trouble of creating a Butcherblock counter, because first of all, it just requires more wood, and it's a lot more work because end grain is annoying to deal with, I would have liked it thicker, because that's what I think looks really good. So maybe like 4 inches. So how much wood would we need then? Okay, we would need 32 board feet. Let's add 30% to that because of waste, blah, blah, blah. That's more like 41.6 board feet. So I started out with 25 rough sawn board feet for this counter, ended up with 18 finished board feet. But if I had wanted this 4-inch thick Butcherblock, I would have needed close to double the amount of wood. I could have pretty much made 2 of these counters for the same amount of wood that I would use if I were to make one thicker Butcherblock counter. Isn't that kind of amazing? So next time you go through a store, you see a kitchen island or a table or something that has one of these thick Butcherblocks, and you're like, whew, oh my god, that's a lot of money. How dare they, you know, charge that much for that counter? Well, this is why. It just uses a huge amount of wood, and it's a huge amount of work. So, of course, if you want to use even less wood than a side grain glue up, you can always do, you know, a flat glue up, so where you have the, you know, boards straight. This uses the least amount of wood by far, right? Of course, you are limited by how thick the wood is when you're starting out. If it's rough sawn, you have a little more control. If you're buying pre-milled lumber, then you got what you got, right? The one thing about making a counter like this is, for the most part, it's going to be fine. But there's a reason why people like laminated counters, basically glued together boards, and that's because it is more stable. So over time it doesn't warp or crack or create like these weird movements, whereas when you have flat boards that can certainly happen. Of course, there are some things that you can do to prevent that or hopefully avoid it. You can add breadboards to the sides of the wood so that they are kind of like locked in place. You can do that. And then of course, you know, make sure that your lumber is seasoned, used to your environment, that you keep it in a, you know, a nice tempered space. But basically, if you don't have a whole bunch of tools and you want to use less wood, flat boards is probably the way to go. If you have a little more wood and a little more tools, then side grain glue up is probably the way to go. And if you want to go full crazy and just use a ton of wood and have a lot of work in front of you, then make a Butcherblock counter. Now, in terms of the wood, what kind of wood can you use to make a counter or a tabletop? Well, personally, I think you can pretty much use anything. If you are a woodworker, you know, and you're using a wood like this, you can always plane it down, which I've been meaning to clean it up. I love how you can just hand plane a board and make it new. But this is 2x4s, so very beat up because it's been used a lot. I would stay away from pressure treated wood because you don't want that stuff in your house. But I mean, you could certainly use 2x4s. That's what I have. This workbench over there is made out of 2x4s, and I love that thing. I could totally see myself making a piece like that for an indoor environment. Like, yes, it's not going to be as durable. It's going to get more dense and more marks over time. But I kind of like that. I don't think that's a bad thing. Of course, you can use wood from, you know, your home improvement store, pine, stuff like that. I mean, that's fine. And of course, if you want to go more classic, more durable, then go with your hardwoods. Cherry, oak, maple, walnut. Go crazier than that. This is my editing station right here, and this table, let me show you guys. This is actually made out of e-paper. Just secure together. But this has been working out great. I wanted to use cherry for this one. My other favorite wood is like a white oak. Although I like cherry for a kitchen environment because it is just it's a fruit tree. I like the concept of that. It is safe in a food environment. Plus you can finish it anyway, so I don't know if it matters too much. So takeaway point, I think you can use pretty much any wood as long as you are mentally prepared for what can happen to the wood. Butcherblock uses a ton more wood. Side grain is a good in-between situation. I love the way this counter came out. It's very nice. I think we're gonna get a lot of use out of it. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I want to say thanks to our patrons for supporting the channel. And if you're interested, you can always check out our shop where we're selling wax polish and plants and things like that. Yeah, have a nice day. See you guys.